יואי מלא. שי, תהיה עם הפנים למטה.
Rocket fire continues to pound both Israel and Gaza, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promising to continue attacks against Hamas with full force. Joining us is Israeli Ambassador Jonathan Peled. Jonathan, what's the latest on the situation?
First of all, unfortunately, this night has still continued with the barrage of rockets and missiles on Israeli cities and towns. Our enemy is not the people of Gaza. Our enemy is Hamas, and we have to continue making every effort to really stop Hamas and to degrade its capabilities of indiscriminately firing at us.
Israel is meant to be a safe haven for Jewish people. Why does Hamas continue to target Israel?
Well, Hamas is really a clear and open and public objective is the destruction of the state of Israel. It doesn't need any pretext or any excuse to fire rockets at us. Unfortunately, the Palestinians are paying a very heavy price because Hamas is hijacking the Palestinian cause. It's trying to take over the Palestinian street, supposedly in the name of the defense of Jerusalem, when really all it's doing is calling for the destruction of Israel and instead of taking care of its own people.
And what's the death toll on both sides? Where is that standing at the moment?
It's far too high on both sides. I wouldn't like to go into the numbers, but definitely every casualty is a casualty too much. And we regret really the loss of any human life, especially of the uninvolved. But unfortunately, again, Hamas is cynically and tragically hiding behind human shields, firing out of populated areas, and trying to inflict as much harm and death on its own side.
Yeah, we're seeing pictures coming out of Gaza of people running for their lives, parents clinging to their babies as rockets are approaching. A lot of people are seeing those images and are feeling anger towards Israel. What's your message to those people?
Again, that our enemy is not the people of Gaza, but the people of Gaza should stand up and call Hamas for what it is, a terrorist regime hijacking their cause, drawing fire into their populated areas, hiding beneath mosques, hospitals, schools, even media towers, and really indiscriminately firing at Israeli citizens. So Israel has no other choice but really to take these measures reluctantly. And as I said, we're trying to make every effort to target only military targets, but unfortunately, civilians and uninvolved are getting in harm's way.
Yeah, and you mentioned the media tower there, and I know there's been a bit of controversy over that. It housed the AP and Al Jazeera and other media. And is Israel willing to put forward the evidence on why that target was necessary?
Absolutely. I mean, we're sending out this evidence. I don't know if it's been already sent out to the media, but it has been given to various foreign intelligence services. And obviously, we will prove that that tower was serving a Hamas intelligence cyber organization, which therefore made it into a legitimate military target.
And with no end in sight at the moment, what is the strategy here for Israel? Does Israel want to take over the Gaza Strip, or are you going to call for peace? What's the next step?
Well, definitely. I mean, we have no intention of going back into Gaza. We withdrew from Gaza in 2005. What we hoped would be another sign of a concession for peace, for quiet. Unfortunately, totally all the opposite has occurred. What we are now aiming at is really to bring a halt to this terrorist attack from Gaza and to be able to have a sustainable peace and quiet. We need more than just a ceasefire. We need really now a sustainable peace and quiet so that this horrendous situation does not repeat itself in another few months or a year down the line.
And of course, on social media, we're seeing both sides, people siding with Israel and others with the Palestinian people through that movement, Free Palestine. What exactly does that mean, Free Palestine?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of ignorance and misinformation in the world. Free Palestine, as I said, we withdrew from Gaza in 2005, so we're not even there. So these calls, I can understand people wanting to support sort of the weaker side, but they should support Palestinians, not Hamas. They should support the Palestinians' desire for peace and should call on the Palestinian Authority to sit down and negotiate with Israel as we've been trying to do ever since I can remember. So what we really need is for people to try and sort of put things in the right perspective, in the right context, and try and imagine what would, God forbid, their reaction be if they were now under imminent rocket and missile attacks and having to spend their nights and days in bomb shelters.
How effective have those Israeli rockets been at destroying Hamas targets?
Well, luckily, the Iron Dome has had a 90% success rate. But of course, there is no system which is 100% fail-safe. And so when you have 3,000 rockets fired, even if only 10% or less manage to penetrate our defense system, you can imagine the damage and the deaths and the casualties it has caused on our side. But luckily, we are sending our population into bomb shelters, and we are alerting them with sirens and doing everything really to protect human life, which is not the case, unfortunately, on the other side.
I understand over 30 militants have been killed. I mean, how big is Hamas? How many targets are left?
I don't really know, but it's surprising to see how meticulously they've been working these last few years in building this extremely sophisticated tunnel and underground arsenals and rocket manufacturers, all beneath, as I said, civilian buildings. So we're surprised every time anew to see how Hamas has been really diverting all its energy and its money, by the way, a lot of it is international assistance, into really stockpiling rockets and ammunition instead of really building schools and hospitals like it should.
So you talk about international assistance for Hamas. Where is that coming from?
That is coming from the European Union, from Qatar, from other states. Israel itself, during the calm, allows equipment, goods, and food to cross into Gaza, because we understand that the Gazans have very, very important needs. As I said earlier, our enemy is definitely not the people of Gaza. There are very good, peace-loving Palestinians living in Gaza, I'm sure, who are dreading this situation, which has been imposed on them and imposed on Israel by a terrorist faction, which brutally took over the Gaza Strip, by the way, not through any democratic election.
So when is the next meeting? When are these rockets going to stop?
Well, I very much hope, Christy, that sort of within the next really few hours, very few days, there's nothing we would like more than to restore a calm, peace, and quiet. And as I said, but we do have to ensure, though, that it's not a temporary ceasefire, that it is a sustainable peace and quiet. I very much hope that really the sooner, the better. We would all like to have an end to this terrible cycle of terrorist attacks against us.